We just got back from our library. We're signing up for some fall classes, and one of those classes is something that I am teaching. It's a Teaching Kids How to Crochet series, and I'm really excited to do that this year. I've done the past 2 sessions. I've done a spring and a fall already, and it was a mixture of series and just kind of one-off classes. This time I just decided to keep it kind of simple. And just do a series, except I extended the series a little bit. It's I'm trying to remember if it's 6 or 8 weeks now. The classes are open, so I'm hoping that, you know, people are signing up for it. I switched the time of the day. The other classes that I did were like after school classes, and it was just kind of hard with my schedule, with, you know, my kids being hungry and ready for dinner at that time of day, and it getting dark early in the fall and winter. That's not an easy time to be like, let's go back out and be at the library. And then the other thing is, I used to do 2 sessions back to back. My thought was, let in more kids so that more kids can take the class. I'm already at the library. I would rather do it 2 classes back to back than do 2 separate days of classes. So that's what we did this past year. This session is just 1 class, and it's going to be, you know, afternoon, like 2 o'clock-ish. So it's a different time of day. It's kind of got a different feel to it, and I'm really excited to be teaching it. So first up is to look online. I can't see the class list yet until the list gets printed and sent to me. But what I can do is see if it's full, or if, you know, if someone were to try to sign up, if it says waitlist. I'm slightly worried because it's a different time of day, it's a different audience, it's a homeschool class. I'm slightly worried that no one's going to do it. So we're gonna go check that. Good news, it's full and the wait list is full. So we have a full group of kids. I'm actually going to be teaching 14 kids. 4 of them, well, 2 of them are my kids, and then 2 of them are my kids, like one of our closest family friends who also know how to crochet. So I kind of view them as, they're going to be doing the work with us, but they're going to be able to help a lot more. So originally it's a class size of 10. So it's going to be about, let's say 10 to 14. And that's really the largest amount of group of kids that I would want to teach. So anyway, I'm glad that is, that's good. That's a go. And everyone's, you know, I'm going to have kids to teach. It's just such a fun way to volunteer at our library. And I really, really, really love teaching kids. And I just think it's just something that I really want to pass on to my kids, to their friends. I love that my girls already want to crochet and knit. And so we've kind of created this way to have them meet other friends who want to do the same thing. So it's a bonus, it's a benefit for my kids. And then it's also just great fun for me. So what we're going to be doing this year is kind of a granny stitch type pumpkin. In the past, we've done a little stuffy blanket, which was kind of like just like a little dishcloth, but you know, most 9-year-olds don't want to make a dishcloth, so we called it a stuffy blanket. We've also done a granny square series, and then we've done a couple one-off classes where they just learned to make something seasonal, like crochet a shamrock in March, crochet a heart in February. So this is going to be very seasonal, something that they can work on for multiple weeks in a row. And the class size is, you know, it's a good manageable size. So I'm going to just kind of prep that with you. And if that's interesting, then you just kind of get to see a cool behind the scenes look at what it looks like to just prep a class of teaching kids how to crochet. If you also are like, you know, I've always wanted to, or maybe this is something I should do, just ask your library. I mean, they are just looking for people to bring good quality things. And like our library, we live in a pretty small town. Our library has a lot of things that people are interested in right now, which kind of have to do with those old, we'll call them old-fashioned skills that aren't really being taught anywhere else right now. It's been really cool to be able to provide that to our community. And like I said, my kids have a blast. It's just like we've kind of created this little group, which is super fun. So yeah, I'll walk you through what it is I'm going to do, what we're going to plan to make, my materials, how I kind of prep that so that everything's good to go. All right, I'm still holding on to summer, but I'm excited for fall. So I did pull these yarns out a little while ago and just had them in a basket sitting in my room, just kind of waiting. And I've been looking at them and they just feel very fallish. So I'm going to show you what it is I have that we're going to work with and what else we're planning here. And then I'm actually going to crochet up a sample of the pumpkin and then we'll see what it looks like. So from my stash, I have a lot of, as you can see, I love this yarn from Hobby Lobby. It's worsted weight. This is mystery yarn. It was donated to the library, which was then given to me to be teaching some of these classes. It feels like it could be, I love this yarn, I love this cotton. It feels like it almost could be Red Heart Super Saver. That's kind of the feeling I get from it. It's definitely not anything like Heron Simply Soft or something like that, but I'm gonna guess it's another I love this yarn in their like stripy prints. So we've got this as kind of our base, and then I've got this really big, also mystery yellow. It's kind of it's not a light yellow. It's not, I guess it's more mustard yellow. That looks pretty mustardy. So this is kind of what we're looking at for our palette. And then I have a brown. This is Hirschner's Afghan yarn in the color chocolate, and it's acrylic. So I've taken all the labels off. I can really see all the colors that I'm working with here. And this feels very fall. This is super cute. So basically what I do is, so far, this has worked so far because I've done enough classes for this to work. I have all the yarn that was donated to the library. So if you're thinking of, you know, starting a class at a library, you can always ask and see, did anyone donate any yarn? And start there. So I actually have just been working through that. The thing that I changed, this one looks different. Well, yeah, this one's one of mine. The only thing that I actually am buying for this is the hook. So I'm buying on Amazon. I think it's a set of 12. So for this class, I'm going to need to buy 2 sets. And then I use them for the class. Each kid will get to have their own. And then it stays with their project. And I'll talk about that in a second. And what I end up doing is at the end of this session, especially if it's someone who's brand new, who hasn't done a class, and they probably don't have any crochet hooks at their house, I ask them if they want to take the hook home with them. To me, it's a cheap price. It comes in a huge set of 12. I would rather them take it home. And they're old enough kids where they're not just taking it home and it's just getting lost in their house. Every time I've asked, all the kids are like, oh yeah, I definitely don't have one. Or they're like, oh yeah, we have one of those at our house. And it's not just, you know, I'm using it every day. It's, yeah, I know where it is. Maybe I haven't used it every day, but I know exactly where in my house a crochet hook is. So I do let them take a hook home at the end, and then I just buy a new set of 12. Or in this case, I'm gonna get 2 sets of them, pull out what I need for the class, and then keep the rest in my yarn hutch for the next one. So this was just on Amazon. I don't know the brand. It's a 5.5 millimeter, and all of these yarns are worsted weight. So that's gonna kind of pair perfectly together. Okay, so I'm gonna set those aside for right now. And like I said, I'll show you how I make it so that each kid has their own project area, and then this will stay with it. So setting those off to the side. So basically my first thought was to make a crochet granny square pumpkin. The only problem with that is to make it, I think they're going to need to, well they're going to need to make multiple granny squares, and the last session that I did, it took the whole 4-week session to make a granny square. And so for this session, where it's 6 or 8 weeks, I can't remember right now, plus, you know, assembling it all together, that's just not something they're going to be able to do this time. So now I'm looking at doing still where it has that granny square kind of look to it, and we're going to make the pumpkin that way. So like I said, I like to keep the class size like 10 to 12, but this time it's going to be 14. But like I said, there are several helpers here who are no longer beginner crocheters who they can help. And what I did in the last session is that I didn't actually even sign my girls up. They are just there extra. They are making the project. They're totally included with it, but they are spread out throughout the table, or if they're sitting in one side with their stuff set up, they're, you know, I can catch their attention and ask them to help on one half of the table. We've done that way before where we split the table in half and I am helping maybe the group who has a little bit of a harder time understanding what we're doing. And then my girls kind of work their way through helping out those who are kind of grasping it a little bit more, because then they can kind of take the easier questions. And that's been really helpful. If you notice that there aren't as many kids who are struggling, I don't recommend splitting the table, because then you're going to have a larger group who seem to understand what they're doing, and then kind of singled out off to the side is, you know, one or two kiddos who might need a little bit extra help. And that isn't going to make anyone feel good. So I don't recommend splitting the table unless you can kind of see a pretty even 50-50, you know, we're grasping it versus we need a little more help. And then in that case, I always take the group that has, you know, that needs the little more help. And then I have a more advanced crocheter help with the ones who need less help, if that makes sense. So that's been the way that we typically split the table. I get there a few minutes early and I just unpack everything and set out everything that needs to be out. So at each spot, I will just place each child's project. If they come in and want to swap where they're sitting with someone else, that's totally fine. But at least they can come in. They're not just entering an empty room and they're not really sure where to go, or worse, entering a full room and not really sure who to sit by if they don't know anyone. They already have basically their seats planned out for them. The other thing is that right smack in the middle of the table, I have a few things. One is our giant basket of already wound up yarn balls. So this is something I do ahead of time. My younger kiddos help do this. And after I make the sample, I'm actually going to take it apart. I'm going to wind up each color so that I know what size balls we need. I've eyeballed it before, and I've also measured with our kitchen scale to see how many grams each ball is. And then I will wind up that size in all these different colors here and have just this big basket here with a bunch of yarn in it. So they can come in, they can find their seat, they can come. I will let them know we're going to start on the next round. You can grab whatever color you want next. So it gives them something to do. One, they're not walking into a room and they're not sure where to sit. They already have that set out for them. And two, they're not sitting there kind of wondering what they should do because, you know, we're waiting for the rest of the group to arrive. They can pick up the basket and choose what their color is going to be next. So included in what's at their spot when they come in is going to be their project. If they haven't started it yet, it's just going to be a crochet hook if it's the first day. If we're a little further on, it'll be their project as they left it the week before. So I'll actually have the crochet hook still in it, attached. It's the hook they've been using. It's the project they've made. And then their job is to come in. If they're still on the same round, they'll be working on finishing that. But I try to get everyone caught up. So we're ending class with everyone kind of at the same place so that everyone's coming in new and fresh. They can pick their next color and they can all get the same instructions. And then as the class is going on, like I said, I'll help people who seem to be having a little bit more trouble or just need a little bit of help so that they can get to the goal of finishing with everyone else for that day. And then they're not way behind. Another thing I have in the middle of the table are the samples. So from day one, they're going to have the pumpkin. And probably with how small it is, we're going to have several pumpkins and I'll spread them throughout the table. They can pick it up, they can feel it, they can, you know, look at it closely. They can see the color choices because I'll make each one different colors and the other different color combinations so they can kind of decide for themselves. You know, I like it when it started with a yellow first. I like the green next to the red, or I like the maroon next to the stripy one. So it kind of helps give them a visual of what it is they're making, and then they can kind of start to plan. It's kind of their inspiration. So I think I've decided on my colors, and I'm going to be going in this direction. I think I want this to be the bottom because it feels like it's just, you know, you picked it straight off the grass, and then we're going to go through. These were the two that I'm unsure on, so I'm going to see how the maroon and, well, they're both kind of maroon. We're going to see how these two reds work next to each other. But I do think I want the top to be yellow. We'll see. I kind of wanted to avoid having red and green next to each other to look too Christmassy. That's why I had the yellow and the brown in between, but we're just gonna try it out and see. So I'm trying to think of ways to make this seamless, and one idea is instead of working from the bottom and up, or creating two separate or more separate granny squares and seaming them together, could I make a long stripe and kind of gather it? We're gonna see what that looks like. You know those balls of yarn where you just cannot find the beginning of it? There's nothing on the outside, which means I've got to go in to the yarn parf, which I don't like. Oh, there it is. That's because that was the outside, so the inside's somewhere in there. Sometimes it's not as bad as it seems, and if you just kind of loosen it up, you can get it, and it's not actually a tangle. So we're just gonna kind of loosely, you know, don't force it here. Please work. Oh yeah, that's looking pretty good. I think we're gonna be okay. No giant knots. So I'm going to add my next color. This is what I've got so far. I did a double crochet around, and now we're gonna add our next color, although I'm noticing that this brown is not actually worsted weight. As much as I want it to be, that's why it's a, all right, this is too small. Okay, well, I mean, I could do this. I could go look in my stash for a different color. I don't like this as much. It has the same color as this one, but the other colors aren't as fall. Or what is this one? This one kind of has a lot. It's got the yellow. I like this one better. This has the yellow. It looks kind of like leaves. And I want to pull from the middle. This has to be the same. It's like the same colors, you know? That's the same red. This one's the same, more purpley. It's gotta be. I love this yarn too. Okay, this is where we're at after going through all of the 5 colors once. And I've got a bunch of ends, so I'm just gonna kind of tuck them. So we'll go to this side to kind of give it a good look. So I think what I'm thinking essentially is to go through one more time. It makes it tall, but once we do the ribbing, we're going to be scrunching it together, so that might be okay. And then what I'm going to try is just putting the yarn needle through and, you know, tightening it up. But we'll see. It might be too bunched of a look for what I'm thinking of. But I think this way of starting is going to be way easier for them than starting with a magic ring and going around in a circle. But again, I don't know. We're going to test it out and see. And then I'm going to have my girls try one and see if that is, I mean, if this looks like it's going to be okay after I scrunch it and everything, then I'll have my girls test it. And then I'll start with the magic ring also and then see which one works for them. But that's pretty much my plan, is that I'm going to test this out, have them test it. Now, what I'll do once I'm finished with the final project idea is I'm actually going to take it apart. And that's because I want to find out exactly how much yellow I had. I want to find out each round how much yarn it is. And I'm not increasing, so it should really, theoretically, besides this bottom row, should be about the same. But I'm going to wind up the balls, put them in a basket, and that'll be what's on the table. But basically, I want to know how much yarn it takes to go around in each color, and then they can be swapping out. I find that that's so much easier than just putting a huge ball of yarn I'm not cutting and no one's, you know, taking a whole ball of yarn and no one else can have the color. There's lots of color choices out and it just seems to work best that way. So I'm going to keep working on this and figure out what's going to work well for the class. I'm already thinking that this is not my favorite, but I do think that it's good to show it in there for the kids to know that this is what it looks like with a stripe. But I think I'm going to look down at my stash and find a different color of this. But yeah, this is, so far, this is basically how I go through planning how to teach a crochet class. Is I start with the idea, find the yarn, I got to go online and order more crochet hooks, and then I'm just testing around and seeing what the pattern's going to be. Not just how can I create a pumpkin, but in what way is it going to be easier and keep it beginner friendly. And also I'm thinking mindfully of the time. Our class is 45 minutes long once a week, and I just want to make sure that they're able to finish it and not, you know, have an incomplete project by the end of the series. Or, you know, it's not so easy that they're done after week 2. And it's okay if some people are. There's going to be more advanced crocheters, so they might finish more than one pumpkin throughout the whole series. But if everybody is like, we finished this in 2 weeks, then that's probably not a great sign. I'm trying to make it last so that they're really able to work on how do you hold your hook and worrying about tension and really understanding where they're putting their stitches and stuff. So stretching it to fit the amount of time we have, keeping it at a beginner level, that's what I'm going for. So I hope that was kind of fun to see the behind the scenes of how I'm prepping for my crochet class.